I want to talk to you today about reinventing your personal brand. And this is not what you expect. I'm not going to talk about funnels. I'm not going to talk about design. I'm not going to talk about colors. I'm not going to talk about goals. I'm not talking about any of that. Because none of that matters until you get your personal brand to a place that comes from within you. I know. You're probably like, what the hell is she talking about? But I'm going to sit here and go through this with you. And then on the blog, I have some great exercises for you. And actually, they're called word branding games to help you start associating your personal brand with that inner self, right? Because that inner self, that higher conscious self, I call it the divine spark within, is where your imagination, your purpose, your passion, all the ideas, everything stems from within you. And I'm going to give you a great example of this. But before I begin that, using this example, my name is Nina Zappala. This is a place to talk about spiritual personality typing. It's a roadmap to your true self. What I mean by that is I've taken Myers-Briggs typology from the 1940s and I've infused it with spiritual understandings. So you're getting the best of the both worlds. You're marrying your logic with the spirit. Body, mind, soul. I just haven't done the body part yet. But we do the body because I tell you to listen in. Your body helps you listen. And it helps you listen to what words resonate with you. That's why it's so important. But spiritual personality typing is an identity architecture that's spiritual and holistic in nature. It's not linear in its approach at all. That's why I keep on telling you, look within. Look within. Everything comes from within. And I talk a lot about that divine spark within and that true self. Because once you start, your personal brand starts emanating from your true self, your truth, it changes everything. Everything will change. Trust me. I know. I reinvented myself. That's why I kind of went in and used this name about reinvention, because it's really where you need to start. You don't start with logos, colors, funnels, listening to what everyone else is saying. And if you are, how's that working for you? How's that working for the majority of the population? We can see it doesn't work. And yet we keep on going at that ad nauseum, just like over and over and over and over. It's a definition of insanity, right? But here's the example I wanted to get back to. Anyway, Nina Zappala here. If you're having things about your brand that you're stuck on, please, I do clarity calls and we start with clarifying who you are. Even doing that, I'm telling you, your life's going to change, because we're going to get you really crystal clear from a spiritual personality point of view. It's totally different than just Myers-Briggs. Okay? And yesterday we talked about some of these word games, and it's this or that. So, do you want to do things different, or do you want to do different things? The way I teach personal branding is about impact and legacy. And there's a lot of spiritual isms in it. And I'm not talking about just going on a mountaintop and meditating. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about more about personal growth, self-improvement, taking responsibility for yourself. So we get into that in my one-to-one sessions. I have a book out. I didn't bring it out with me, but it's called Unpack Your Personality, Let Your Inner Guide Be Your Travel Guide. And that too is a great starter. It's a great Kickstarter on what spiritual personality typing actually is. But let's get back to the point I was making at the very beginning of the video. So, personal brand. You don't just look out. And I'm going to take Steve Jobs, because he's one of my favorite personal brands on the planet, because I think he's just a visionary, and maybe I just relate to that. But when he first started out, he wanted to introduce the iPod. He did what most of us do. He took out a 2-page spread in the New York Times. There's pictures of the iPod everywhere, right? And he was talking about, it does this and it does this, and it's all the logical things, right? All the logical things that he built the iPod, right? So he was just giving all the background, 2 pages, right? A lot of text, right? And it bombed, like totally bombed. I know. Have you ever heard of Apple bombing? Well, this bombed. And you can Google it. I think it's Steve Jobs' New York Times page ad, and look it up, and you'll see. You're like, whoa, what is that? Then he had to go back to the drawing board and goes, what is it that I'm truly about? Why am I really introducing this? And it's not all the logic, it's not how the tech works, none of that. It's none of that. It was none of that. Steve Jobs was a visionary, a true visionary, right? He wasn't going to IBM or Bill Gates or anybody else and going, okay, what are you doing? Let me see if I can copy that. Hell no. He was a visionary. So his next ad was 1,000 songs in your pocket. Cha-ding. Couldn't keep the damn thing on the shelves, right? But see, instead of speaking to the logical essence of things, dipping into the external world, the logical, he went into his visionary self. And he used what he knew, like what he really truly believed in, what his impact was. And the impact he wanted to have is like, he wanted you to have 1,000 songs in your pocket, so you could always be like in tune, bop along, be happy. Music is a great way to uplift your soul. And he was like a Buddhist, so he was into the spirituality of life, of his business. He didn't talk about it, he just was it quietly. That's where his simplicity came in. That was part of his brand. So you can't start from not knowing yourself and putting all your goals and all your colors and your website together. It doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way, right? And I'm guilty. I'm working on my website. It's a poop show right now, and it's okay. I know I'm working on it, but I know in my heart what I'm about. I know what I teach works because I'm being true to myself. I'm not going out there and looking for ideas. That whole approach landed me in a 7-year life tsunami because I wasn't being myself, right? And yes, I had success. I did. And you might be having success too. But the thing is, the success you're having is misaligned with who you truly are. It's not burnout. It's not. If you're feeling anxious and empty and overwhelmed and you're successful, it's typically because you're on a path of doing something that's not true to yourself. So you're just grinding it out because that's what the world tells you to do. Let's grind it out. I gotta hustle. I gotta work harder. You know, I was constantly told, if you want to sit at the table, you know, you gotta tough it out. No crying. No. And when I used to sit at the table and intuitively create, because that's how I create, ideas come to me and they come out. I'm an ENTP, so you know, I do that. And when I would say something, they're like, well, where's the research? They would go to the logical. They would do what Steve Jobs did. They'd want 15 pages of logic of why this is going to work. I don't know. Where's the logic and emotions? They still don't know. And it's funny because my studies have shown me that back in the late 1800s, scientists started saying, well, we can't talk about the psyche anymore and the soul because we can't explain it. And it really doesn't make sense. So therefore it isn't. What the hell is that? I'm sitting like, what? Okay, whatever, right? But that's what they did. And some of you might not believe you have a soul. I do. So again, take what you want and leave the rest. But to reinvent your brand, your personal brand, it starts within. It's not about a brand. It's about reinventing yourself. And it's really not about reinvention either. It's about remembering. So really what happens is you remember who you truly are. And then this enables you to reinvent your brand. You see what I'm saying? You don't need to reinvent yourself. You're perfect the way you are. You just got to remember all the cool stuff that's inside of you that you've never taken the time to sit and listen to and hear yourself and get to know yourself. What words resonate with you? You know, for me, like, I'm eccentric. Totally. I'm unconventional. I'm a boundary pusher. I'm childlike. I love to have fun in kind of an intellectual way. I don't like pranks and that kind of stuff. Like, but that's okay. It doesn't that's me, right? But I like to read. I love deep conversations. I love to gather for deep conversations, you know? And when I have a meal, I want to sit down and gather from that. I don't want to just like shove my food down and go. Like, that's not my style. That's why I love being in Paris, because they just relax for hours and talk and have great conversations and eat and drink and talk some more. That's how I love that, you know? And actually Paris really vibes with my personality type, because they're argumentative. I could be argumentative. It's just a lot of things about Paris or France in general, and I'm generalizing because I'm just saying what I know, what I learned when I was there. But it seems more in line with me. Not all of it, of course not. And everything's going to be in line with your stuff too. And your brand doesn't have to be everything to everybody. That's my point. So when you start getting into that, when you start getting into that true self, and how do you do that? You have to make time for it. I can't just say, oh, you know, well, you just do this, here's a formula. It doesn't work that way. Because the way you get in touch with yourself is different than the way I get in touch with myself. I will give you this tip. It always works for me. If you're really wanting something, and wanting is the wrong word. If you're really desiring something, better word, you ask. Say, divine, please show me. And then you sit in stillness for a while and see what comes up. But you have to take the time for yourself. And that time should be sacred, because that's the time you're in direct connection with all that is. I call it the divine spark within me, the God fractal within me, your higher conscious self that is tethered to all that is, to the universal I that creates galaxies. Think of all that power that's within us. So if you're denying that about yourself, then you're like, why am I struggling? Why is it so hard? Why am I attracting the wrong people? Because first of all, you might be in the wrong place, even though you're successful. You're misaligned with your success path. You know, and when you do that, you're not having fun, right? You're not vibing the way you're supposed to be vibing. So of course you're going to attract the wrong people. And maybe some of those people are lessons in your life. And maybe they're showing up in your life for you to say, ooh, okay, I can't do this anymore. Something needs to change. And it's not them, it's you. It's you taking the time to go within. And we all been there, all of us. Some people are ahead of you, some people are with you, and some people are behind you. It doesn't matter. We all go through these phases because we're human beings, right? I mean, you really have to sit and take responsibility for what you want to create, because in that true self purpose path, that's where you create from. You don't create from the external world. It doesn't happen there. Steve Jobs no way created his stuff from the external world. No way. He would never got there because there was nothing in the external world that was that. But we can all do that. He just found a way to get to his own vision and express his vision into the world. And then, yes, he used some logical steps to do that. And we all do that. We're going to have to use logical steps in our brand, right? This is getting long, so I want to kind of wrap it up. But I do want to give you some tools. If you want to go and just start having some fun with your personal brand, I'm looking at my computer here, and hopefully it's going to just pop right up. Good. I have... create a unique voice using these 7 word branding games. And so I did some word branding games that starts helping you focus in. Even if you're in a very successful career now, kind of put that aside and start using your words. And words can come from your personality type. So first of all, you have to know your Myers-Briggs personality type. I mean, this is the foundations that I use. Yours might be different. You use what works for you. But if you do need some clarification on your Myers-Briggs personality type, and a lot of people do, because the tests online come back like 65% of the time, they come back incorrect. And we don't want that. We want you to be correct and getting that down, because it has so much good resources in there for you for self-development. So that's a tool right there, right away. Start looking at your words, your strengths and your weaknesses. And please don't see your weaknesses like, see your weakness like, oh, there's an opportunity there for me to overcome and learn something about myself. And then you get to put that in the strength pile, right? So it's good things. And when I take people through this branding thing, when I take this in this phase of the branding process, I also ask you to look at it emotionally. What I mean emotionally, like, how does it make you feel? Do you feel like yes, or do you feel like it's making me feel queasy, or there's something just you feel like there's a little tick in there that just doesn't resonate with you? Good. Note that. Write that down. These are good things. This is because you're learning about yourself. The more you learn about yourself, the stronger your personal brand's going to be. And if you want a personal brand, and I call this soul branding, one that's going to have impact long after you leave the planet, I believe it's soul branding. I don't believe you can just do all this from a physical standpoint, from a logical standpoint, and say, oh, this is great. You might have an impact, but what's the impact? Something to think about, right? Your soul, you take your soul with you. It's eternal. And this is my beliefs. Again, take what you want. But my beliefs is your soul is eternal. You're not going to take any of this with you. None of it. We own nothing. So what do you want to take with your soul when you leave the planet? Hopefully you're going to leave the planet with impact, and hopefully you're going to be evolved so you can go on and do greater things in your next wherever you're going to go, right? Because I do believe in that. You know, I don't believe that you just have this life and you're gone. Like, well, God, I don't think God works that way. I mean, just look at nature. But anyway, that's a whole nother story. Those are my beliefs, not yours. So, but I do want you to learn how to use personal branding stuff so you can really make an impact in the world. So we use some word games. So I talked about one of them's this or that. That's a fun one. This but not that. Sometimes it's best to know what you don't like to really qualify what you do like. So that's a really good one. And that's a very common thing. I'm not saying I'm reinventing all this stuff. The celebrity game. And when I talk about the celebrity game too, please note that I'm also talking about, if you're a brand persona, what is a celebrity? Who would you be? Or if your brand persona was a character in a book. Or if your brand persona was a movie. If your brand persona was a book. All those things. Who would that be? And start writing down, because that's going to get you more in touch with yourself too. So that's a really fun exercise to do. And then, keywords that light you up. That's where you go into that emotional thing. What lights you up? For me, it's like, I like boundary pushers. I like rule breakers. I like the unconventional. I do like childlike behavior. I like just to be like in wonder of the world and not to see it as like, oh, it's another day. There's a tree. No. I mean, there's a cherry blossom tree blooming right now on my street, and I just cannot walk by it without stopping and going up close to it and looking at it. That's just me. Told you I'm a little eccentric, so I talk to trees and plants and animals, but that's the wonder in me that does that. So that needs to convey in my brand, right? Those are the things I want you to start looking at in yourself. And there's so many people out there, and because I've talked to them, extremely artistic, and they feel things so deeply. I have no clue how they do that because I don't have that gift, but they do, right? So there's all kind of gifts that I want you to enjoy about yourself and really get into. And this is the last one I'll leave you with. This is like the hypothetical dinner party. What does your brand show up when you go to dinner? What does your brand look like? And I did one for this, and it's actually one of my more popular blogs. It's about Thanksgiving. Like, what's your Thanksgiving meal and how do you show up for Thanksgiving? And a lot of people like that because like, oh, that is me, And it's funny because this thing that I'm talking about, this divine spark within you, your soul, your Holy Spirit, your God force, I don't care, the God, goddess, whatever you want to call it. I like to call it divine spark. You call it whatever you want. It shows up in everything you do. From the food you eat, to the clothes you wear, to your relationships, how you travel, and of course, your brand. So I want you to be aware of this. And it's a totally different way to look at branding. You're not just going to go out there and pull this stuff in and say, ooh, that's good, that looks good. No. You have to resonate what's here inside. You need to pull that out and craft a brand from that, then apply the logical things that we need to do right now in the world, because the world is changing. And if we don't get really set on who we are and how we're meant to contribute, life's going to be hard because it's already changing. So you want to know all this stuff because you want to be envisioning that and not leaving all the rest of it alone, right? I know that's not easy, but have your own vision. Have your vision. Let them have their vision, right? Let that be. Just let that be. You do you. And create from that higher sense of place, right? I hope this helped you. I think the blog is going to be a lot of fun. It's like a little mini workbook for you. And I'm going to do a couple more videos, one tomorrow and one Sunday. These are little micro lessons I'm trying to give you. I'm trying to help you learn about yourself, discover yourself, become the who of who you really are and how you're meant to show up in the world. When you do that, everything changes. Enjoy, and I'll see you next week.